Welcome to Paranormal Almanac. With your host, Curt Sandvig. That's right, I'm your host, Curt Sandvig, and on this week's edition of Paranormal Almanac, let's talk about the Dodleston Messages. Don't worry, you'll find out. But first, as always, we have shout-outs. That's right, shout-outs going out to all the patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/paranormalalmanac for even more Paranormal Almanac. Shout-outs to patrons Gary, Tracy, Matthew, Sandy, Kelly, Menace the Beast, Kick-Ass Magic Robot Webcomic, Lionel, Sandy, Paige, Kosh, Sean, Andrew, Scott, Andrea, Devin, Melody, Ricardo, Vicky, Christopher, Vanessa, Marisol, Liam, Roger, Michael, Terminal Animal, Alicia, Becca, Jake, and the Beasties. I like that. Elizabeth, Voidtech, Sherry, Art Muffin, Trudy, Tim, Kenneth, Paul, Ricardo, Ian, Jen, Alexandra, George, Connie, Seth, Jason, Cindy, Kim, Ashley, what's that? Carrie, Ezram, Robin, Will, Lauren, Phil Mangano, Russell, April, Isabel, Audra, Dorian, Cindy, Bob, the Sean Bishop, Stacy, Paula, Jerry, Leo, Scoston, Lindsay, Megan, Matt, Amy, Jeff T, Harley, Suzanne, Joe, Lawrence, the Lauren Strawn, hey howdy hi, Veronica, Autumn, J. Mark Manning, Carolyn Martin, Jade, Nanashi, Chuck, Todd, Jamie, and Elijah Hendrickson, Dan, Laura Pitts, and Gamer Fan, with two special shout-outs, as always, to Joe Teague and a Stitch. All right, you can head on over to tpublic.com/store/paranormal almanac, or just search for Paranormal Almanac on their site for all your merch needs. There's a ton of new stuff out there. There's two 200th episode styles that haven't been added yet. Don't look for them yet, but they're coming very soon because we're within 20 episodes of the ginormous, stupendous extravaganza of the 200th episode. That's right, the 200th episode. I said at the 100th episode, when I did 2-hour episode, I was like, I'm going to double it for the 200th episode, thinking, well, future Curt has to worry about that. Well, future Curt here, I am worried about that. So there's going to be a lot going on in the 200th episode, including something that I just announced on the Facebook pages today, the Paranormal Almanac fan page and the regular Paranormal Almanac Facebook page, that I did this thing that it's just so dumb that I was like, well, I got to do it. I got to do it for the show. And then I'm like, ooh, I'll do it for the 200th episode. It'll be announced, or it'll be, realized then, however you want to word it. But basically, I went to this thing called Melissa Psychic on Facebook. There's always these stupid ads where this like woman standing next to this guy, and then the next picture is like a drawing of the guy, and she's like, this is going to be so weird. I ordered a soulmate drawing from Melissa Psychic, and look, I met this guy out of nowhere, and it's the exact drawing of this guy that she's with. So I was like, oh, this should be fun. So I ordered a psychic soulmate drawing, and on the 200th episode, I will reveal the results to all social media, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Patreon. Don't worry, patrons, you're not going to be out. I know, because a lot of patrons are like, look, I don't like any of the social media. I don't either. You're 100% right. You shouldn't like it. But they're like, so can you start putting shit on Patreon? Yep, I sure will. On the 200th episode, I will reveal the results of my psychic soulmate drawing. It's going to be so bad. But let's get right on into paranormal news, because I've got a very special paranormal news episode for you as well. All right, the first story in paranormal news, this isn't the very special part of the paranormal news, but it is to me because it's about Nessie. The first story in paranormal news. Privileged to have witnessed it. The Loch Ness Monster, not a monster, sighting stuns Highland residents of 30 years. That's right, Nessie has been spotted for a third time this year by Glenn Blevins, who's lived in the area for 30 years. Says he was privileged to have witnessed a large, animate object in the water near the castle on April 15th. The official Loch Ness Monster sighting register confirmed it was the third sighting of Nessie this year. Mr. Blevins, who's lived in the area for 30 years, said, I'm not going to do the accent, I was near the castle on April 15th working on the banks of the loch when I saw a large, animate object in the water between both banks of the loch at approximately 9:30 in the morning. It was dark in color and stayed there for around 20 seconds before sinking into the water. I watched it with binoculars that I had taken with me in the hopes of seeing ospreys and had recently returned to the area. It was difficult to estimate the size, but it was definitely larger than a seal, and given the angle, there may have been two, one behind the other. Mr. Blevin explained that he worked regularly around the loch during that time and fished many times on Loch Ness. He said he'd never seen anything like this before. He felt privileged to have witnessed it. That's about it. That's all we need for this story. I'm going to keep on moving on because there's a very special paranormal news coming up in just a second. Up next in paranormal news, U.S. government report proposed nuking the moon from newly released documents. The agency was funding secret research. The U.S. government's now defunct ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, spent millions of taxpayer dollars to research bizarre experimental, Kurt, come on, technology such as invisibility cloaks, anti-gravity devices, traversable wormholes, and a proposal to tunnel through the moon with nuclear explosives, according to dozens of documents obtained by Vice.com. I swear it's going to get better. This episode's going to get better. I'm just getting into the swing of things. The documents, which include nearly 1,600 pages of reports, proposals, contracts, and meeting notes, reveal some of the stranger priorities of ATIP, a secretive Department of Defense program that ran from 2007 to 2012, but only became known to the public in 2017. Let's see. The new documents suggest that ATIP was up to more than just investigating UFOs, though. The entire cache of 51 documents obtained by Vice via a Freedom of Information Act filed 4 years ago can be read here. Perhaps the most intriguing among the documents are several dozen Defense Intelligence Research documents or reference documents, which discuss the viability of various advanced technologies. This collection included reports on traversable wormholes, stargates, and negative energy. That's really interesting because the rest of the stuff that's on this list, if you think about it, the stuff that I read earlier, hold on, let me scroll up here. Invisibility cloaks. We know those are real, and if you don't know those are real, guess what? Those are real. You can Google it, you can do it. There's even like a Kickstarter or something where you can buy one. And that's just the stuff that's like been released to the public. Can you imagine the shit that the secret government, the stuff the governments had secretly for years? It's going to be way beyond that technology. Anti-gravity devices. They've been talking about that forever as well. Wormholes, I guarantee you they've been talking about wormholes around the Large Hadron or Hadron Collider or whatever it's called. But still, stargates, traversable wormholes, negative energy, high-frequency gravitational wave communications, warp drive, dark energy again, and the manipulation of extra dimensions. The manipulation of extra dimensions. That's some crazy shit. They're saying that the government put real money into these. Guarantee, this is Kurt here. This is Kurt guarantee. I'll give you the Kurt guarantee. Guarantee you they got something out of this. The manipulation of extra dimensions. This stuff was like crazy science fiction, but nope, being worked on. Let's see. They said the report on invisibility cloak. Perfect cloaking devices are impossible because they require materials where the speed of light approaches infinity. However, cloaking devices that make objects invisible to microwave-based sensors such as radars and motion detectors are definitely within the reach of present technology. But guess what? Again, there's like a Kickstarter right now for an invisibility cloak. It's not science fiction. It's science fact. They said that negative mass propulsion to look for extremely lightweight metals in the center of the moon that may be 100,000 times lighter than steel but still have the strength of steel. to reach the center of the moon. They said blasting a tunnel through the lunar crust and mantle using thermonuclear devices. That's insane. Am I saying that the government secretly nuked the moon? I don't think so. But why would they even think of that? Why would they even bring up these materials? Why? Because if you read any of the stuff about the UFO documents that were released, the disclosure documents, if you will, they talk about having metamaterials not of this Earth, not man-made of this Earth, i.e. extraterrestrial vehicle materials. They already know this shit exists. All right, the next one in paranormal news, crowd control heat among weapons, U.S. government's UFO research proposed by documents. So basically, it's just a continuation of that ATIP one. There's going to be some more crazy stuff like high-energy laser weapons. Yeah, no, there's a bunch of weird shit. That stuff that you thought was only sci-fi, you only see in Star Wars or Star Trek. Well, guess what? It's probably real. Speed of light energy. Yeah, all that crap was probably real. And it's probably going to kill us. Okay, with that, I want to get right on in because a couple of weeks ago, I did an article or I did a news story about some kids. I'll say kids. That's kind of mean. Some students that had started a Trent University Sasquatch Society, and I put on that episode. I was like, "Yeah, I want to talk to you. If you hear this, I want to talk to you." Well, they didn't hear it because they're not fans, but they will be now. But a fan heard it and was like, "Hey, this guy's doing a podcast about you and he wants to talk to you." And thankfully, they reached out to me, and I just had the best conversation with Ryan, Nick, and Allison of the Trent Sasquatch Society. They're a cool school up in Ontario at Trent University. They have over 140. Well, you know what? Why am I telling you about it? Let's just jump right in now to a paranormal news follow-up interview with 3 members of the Trent University Sasquatch Society. I'm just going to kind of jump into the interview, but who am I speaking with?
I'm Ryan, president and founder of the Trent Sasquatch Society.
Yep.
I'm Allison over here. I'm one of the social media coordinators.
Hi, Allison. How's it going?
Good.
And I'm Nick. I'm just an executive at the moment.
Dude, that's awesome. Hi, Nick. How's it going, man?
Not too bad yourself.
Good, good.
Good.
Oh, is that it? Is that everybody?
Oh yeah, it's just 3 of us.
No, are you kidding? That's amazing. I just thought it was just going to be me and Ryan, so that's cool. I thought I was just going to have to speak to the president. I didn't know I was going to speak to more. I love this. All right.
Yeah, no, you got the half the executive team.
Well, it's an important podcast. I'm glad that half the executive team are here for me. So it should be the whole team, but that's okay. I'll let it go. But no, this is awesome. Are you kidding? All right. First of all, how did you guys find out that I was talking about you?
Someone messaged us on our Instagram page saying they were talking about you on this podcast, and they said, it sounded like they wanted to have you on, and so we thought we'd get in touch and see if you wanted to do an interview.
I'm so happy that you reached out. I really am. I'm sorry that it took a couple of times to get the timing right, but I'm so happy that you reached out because this is a club, a society. Society's a better term. This is a society that I would have been in if I was in school right now. So I'm ecstatic that somebody's doing this because there's you guys are one of 2 that are doing that. Is that right?
Yeah, apparently there's one in, I think, Virginia or somewhere down in the States. Yeah, but I think it's just that we're the only 2 schools right now. But I think there might be some other schools in Ontario that because of us are going to start their own chapters kind of under our directive actually.
Wait, is that right? You guys are spawning more groups?
Well, yeah, I've had some people at other schools say that they're interested in doing something. So
awesome.
We'll see if they can all get it together. But yeah, they've reached out. So
now, if they become a member of the society, are they under you? Are they their own entity? How's that work?
I guess they'd be their own entity technically, but they said they'd like to work with us, in our resources and everything. Because we've compiled a lot of contacts and stuff like that and researchers. So
that's what I was going to say. Let me talk to you about that. Tell me about how you evolved, where you came from. Let's start with where you started. How did it get started? Who started it? Was it you?
Yeah. That's a good question. So in our first year at Trent here, you know, I had an interest in it. I was talking with one of my other friends, and he's like, "Oh, I have a big interest in it too." One of the executives that isn't here, and yeah, so we you know, we put a message in our university group. I guess like most of the school can see it. Yeah, there's like a Facebook group. And we put a message in there asking if like anyone would want to come out on like a, you know, like a night investigation, like in the woods near the school. You know, of course we didn't find anything right beside the school, but a lot of, we had like probably like 10 people showed up. And then on top of that, there were friends we brought. So
Really?
you know, we had a whole group that way. Yeah. And made, yeah, we're still all friends and hang out all the time. And,
Oh, that's cool.
and, well, yeah, and they're all in the club obviously too, but, yeah, so we kind of started that way in first year, and then, you know, and then eventually the pandemic hit in our second year. And then, you know, through the pandemic, we decided, you know, we'll do all the paperwork, and we became an actual club. So now we're in our fourth year, and yeah, all the pieces are in place, and it's been really great.
So you guys have become kind of known. You've already talked to other people from like the Bigfoot, what is it, the BFRO? So you actually, you do have the contacts. What have you found from, as the group is growing, as the society is growing, what have you found, you know, for as far as Sasquatch? Are you more convinced? Are you less convinced? Like, give me some evidence. Give me some, what you found.
Yeah, no, we're definitely much more convinced. Like the speakers we have out every week are amazing. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've, you know, obviously you've heard of the BFRO and everything. Yeah. Yeah, so we've talked to Matt a few times. We've talked to Cliff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. And like, you know, so many others. I don't know if you've ever heard of Todd Standing. We were talking with him this week, actually. You know, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and so many other researchers. Yeah. Yeah.
You know who's really approachable? I don't know if you've reached out, is Bryce Johnson from Expedition Sasquatch or Expedition Bigfoot, the TV show. He's very approachable. He's a great guy. I've met him a number of times, and he is the nicest guy. You might want to reach out to him as well.
We've tried to reach out. I think we tried through social media. We haven't heard anything back yet. But if you have their emails or something, if you'd be able to send them, we definitely would love to. I'll
reach out to Bryce. I'll let him know that you guys are trying to reach out to him. You know, put you on his radar. But yeah, that's the way that you do it. It's all connections. It's one connection to the next, and hopefully, you know, not to toot my own horn, this is a top 100 podcast. Hopefully you guys can actually get some connections from this as well. So wait, actually it's a good segue. So if anybody wants to reach out to you with either, you know, Bigfoot stories or sightings or locations, or if they work in a connection to Bigfoot, how could they reach out to you? Let's throw it here instead of wait until the end.
That's a great question. And yeah, so we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we have an email. I think the email is just, what is it? Sasquatch Society at trentu.ca, I think. I'm pretty sure it's just Sasquatch Society at trentu.ca. Yeah.
All right. If it turns out it's not, just let me know. We can throw it in or whatever, but we got time.
Yeah. And I think our what's it? The Instagram
probably is at Trent Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Trent Sasquatch. Perfect.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. Usually if you just type in like Trent Sasquatch Society into Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, like I'm sure we'll come up, you know.
There you
go.
Yeah,
we're super easy to get in touch with. And if you're, you know, in the Bigfoot community or just, you know, have an interest, have had an encounter, or you know, even media to help get the word out about all the work we're doing, that, like, you know, anything, just reach out. We're super easy to get in touch with, and we'd love to hear from you. So
I highly recommend it. And I'm going to, like I said, I'll pimp it out later in the podcast as well. But I really hope that people reach out to you because of this podcast and let them know you heard it on Paranormal Almanac. Like, give me a plug to them so they know where you're coming from. But you know, you guys are doing, like I said, what I would have been doing if it was a thing back when I was in school. And it makes me mad it wasn't a thing. Now, when you started, did people like think, oh, this is a joke and it's kind of fizzle out right away? Or were people like, yes, this is what I want, and we're immediately on board?
I think it was a big mix. Like at the start of our year, we had it's called like Clubs and Groups Day, and just all the clubs go out and, you know, just talk to people. Everyone kind of go around, see what all the clubs are about. But yeah, so we had so many people, you know, come by the booth, and you know, a lot of them came up. They're like, oh, like, is this serious? Is this a joke? And we're like, oh no, like we're actually like, you know, we do research, and like, you know, it's a serious club. And so I think a lot of people, you know, I'm sure some thought like, oh, it's funny, why not, you know? And then I think a lot of others did have like a real interest and wanted to see what we, you know, had to offer and what we could teach them.
Look,
and then there's a lot of members that have actually, you can tell they do like readings and stuff in their off time. Like they'll come with great questions.
oh, that's cool. So, all right. So there's people that are actually trying to elevate this. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, like there's questions I wouldn't even have thought of. Yeah.
I love that. Now, what tools are you using to try and find Bigfoot besides like the knocking on the tree? I'm assuming you're doing the calls or have calls or the whistles or whatever. What are you using to try and find Sasquatch?
We don't go, like, we do go out on night expeditions and things like that, probably maybe, once, twice a month type of thing, like when we can. Like, obviously we have a lot of homework, but
oh yeah.
Yeah, we usually don't take the club out as a whole though. Like there's some liability issues, so it's tougher too, but we try to really emphasize the education side of, teaching them how to do that on their own.
I like that.
Yeah, because where we are, I don't know if you're too familiar with spots in Ontario. We're in like southern Ontario. It's all like farmland really.
Yeah.
And so it's not the best place that if you were to go out and look. But
it's really not. I was checking. I was like, I wonder if there's a large Sasquatch sighting in Ontario, and there's really not. But I mean, I've done numerous episodes about Canadian Sasquatch sightings and encounters throughout history, and there's a ton of them up there.
Oh yeah, no, there's lots that come out of Ontario. Obviously, not as many as out west, but there's definitely a presence here, and so we do go out and look when we can, but we haven't had anything yet right in a little area. But we're just in Peterborough, Ontario, so it's not really the best spot. But I have heard of some encounters actually not too far away.
See, there you go. I mean, they seem to be everywhere, and as man's encroaching on their environment, it's only going to be more and more. So there's more encounters to be had.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast, and it's okay if you don't. It's fine. But there's two things that I always say. I think that science is going to prove the paranormal, and I include Sasquatch in that aspect. But I also say don't effing shoot Bigfoot, because there's too many stories of people like seeing Bigfoot and immediately shooting at them. What's your impression on science proving Bigfoot? Do you think it's going to happen in our lifetime? Do you think it's ever going to happen? I'll put it that way.
I think it'll happen, and I think it'll happen soon.
Really? Kind of like the UFO disclosure. It's going to happen soon.
Yeah, I mean, the UFO disclosure was just like last year, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but I mean,
you're right. Yeah.
So many people go, "Oh, UFOs, like that's funny," but then now the government's releasing, evidence and video, like and admitting it. And I think.
Oh, sorry.
I think
Go
with
ahead.
Bigfoot, it's oh yeah, no worries. I think with Bigfoot, it's really the same thing. I mean, like it's not like just a few people made a joke or a video, and now it's like thousands and thousands of credible people have sightings all the time. There's the people go, "Oh, why is there no videos? Why is there no pictures?" There are videos and picture evidence, like the Patterson Gimlin film. And,
sure.
I mean, really the one thing that's missing is we don't have a skeleton, but I'm not someone that advocates going out and shooting a Sasquatch, but
exactly.
I think scientifically we can collect the proof that way.
Look,
but
Sasquatches have been seen on virtually every continent. Actually, I think it is every continent, in virtually every country. Every indigenous people have a relationship with Sasquatch going back hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. There's something out there. And like, the Yahweh in Australia, I mean, there's always different names, all these different names for them. So there's got to be something out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think, all across the world, there's different terms and words. I think Russia, it's Ural, and Himalayas, it's Yeti, Yowie in Australia, like you said.
Orang Pendek, the skunk ape. Yeah. I mean, it just in America alone, we've got like 3 or 4 different names for it. So like I said, or like you said, people are seeing something.
Yeah, even in South America too. I forget what the name for it is down there, but I know down there there's a lot of sightings come out of South America. So really all over the globe. And I think it kind of speaks to the, this is a very like unique animal with a, quite an intelligence, like, because they are quite elusive beings, obviously.
Well, sure. But I mean, if you look at the silverback gorilla, that was rumored until like the early, the late 19th century before, people are like, oh no, it is real. But yeah, it was been rumored for like 100 years and people are like, no, it's not real. And then there's there's the chimpanzees, something, it starts with a B, that was just discovered and that was rumored forever. And there are these massive chimpanzees, the strongest ones out there. So there are big things yet to be discovered. Yeah.
No, I forget the name for the chimps, but I read about, those, the bigger chimpanzees that you're talking about there. And stuff's being discovered all the time. And, there's new species, not just like bug species, but, new species of animal even being discovered in just very, very remote wilderness where no one is, but there's, rumors all the time. And it's really the same thing with Bigfoot. Like, it's just, it's a matter of time until, we have all the proof for it to be accepted, probably
sure.
like UFOs, yeah, so it's really just a matter of time, I think.
All right, since you're younger than me, I want to see what you guys think of some of the more outlandish theories about Sasquatch, including they can cloak or become invisible at will, they can shapeshift, they're interdimensional, they have something to do with UFOs. I'll let you start with those.
Yeah, we've spoken to some researchers that have that view on that's what Sasquatch is, and I feel bad. I've kind of been doing all the talking here. If you guys wanna,
yeah, whoever jump in, man, don't just leave it up to him. Come on.
I mean, I don't really know how much that much to add to that, but I think I don't know if I believe that view as much. I'm always keeping an open mind about everything, but
no, it's not.
I think it's a little out there, but.
Right? We have this ginormous creature. Why do we have to make him supernatural besides paranormal? Like, I mean, he's already this amazing missing link to, probably Gigantopithecus. Why does he have to be magical too? I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've always been, an ape man myself, like with the hominoid, but, yeah, I mean, it's obviously not for me to say, like, if someone has a difference in opinion, I still love to hear what they have to say and,
sure.
and hear their evidence.
Hey, I've done episodes about that, and the whole time I'm just like, nah. But I don't know. I haven't. It's not like I've had a Sasquatch on my podcast, and until I do, I don't know. So I admit that there's. Look. I don't think there's any experts on the paranormal because you really can't be.
Yeah. Oh, Nick here has a.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say. I think it's just kind of the mythos of Bigfoot. Like, I think once we find one, it will be seen as just another biological animal. But I think the mythos kind of takes over in that aspect, and people start believing all these sorts of things that I guess we can't 100% disprove, but they seem a little out there.
All right, since Nick just spoke, I want to ask Nick then, what do you think about the theory that the governments know about Bigfoot and they're keeping it from people?
Yeah, we've heard about that with a couple of speakers in the club, but I don't really see a reason why they would do that, but they might have their own reasons, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure why they would do that, but
what do you think? Oh my God, I already forgot your name. I'm sorry. There's Ryan, there's Nick. What was your name?
Allison.
Yeah.
Allison, what do you think about, do the government know about Bigfoot?
I mean, it's always possible, but I'm not really sure how I'd go about that one.
So Allison, let me ask you this. It's not unusual. It's interesting to me because most of the squatchers out there are guys. So how many women are in the group, and how did you become part of the group?
How many women? I don't know. I don't know how many are in the group, but the's definitely
it's a big group.
It's a good split.
Yeah, like we have like 148 members or something now. So you have tons with different interests. But
so I guess I joined the club. I was friends with Ryan before I knew about the club, and he told me about it. And I've always been kind of curious about, I guess, anything. I'm always thinking about new stuff. I like, UFOs, all that type of stuff. So when you told me about the Sasquatch Club, I was like, okay, I got to join. This is fun. So, my sister and I, we both joined the club as well.
Cool.
And she's not here today, but she's, yeah. And yeah, so it's been pretty fun. I think there is a pretty good split in the club between men and women. So.
I love that. That's cool because it should be that way. I've never understood because most of my fans are female, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's kind of what I want because I think that the more and more like that paranormal kind of becomes like the in thing, that you find out that a lot more people are into it than you actually initially thought. Are you finding that as the group grows that you guys are either getting more done, or is it the opposite where you're kind of getting bogged down because people just want to see the weird stuff?
Who wants to answer that? Yeah, me. No, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that kind of just want to see the weird stuff rather than, the whole picture and just like the scientific evidence. And but I wouldn't say our group does. Like, you know, obviously I can't tell what every individual person in there is thinking, but I think they want to hear, like, you know, just all the hard evidence and everything our researchers have to say, instead of like maybe a little something that's a little bit out there for, you know, like, oh, I'd like to hear something weird today, you know?
Oh yeah. All right, so I'm going to go around the room. I'll start with Ryan. You come face to face with the Bigfoot. You guys are out there. You come face to face with the Sasquatch. What do you do?
Blow its brains out.
Ha,
No,
no,
kidding.
that's the number one rule of this
I wouldn't
podcast.
do that. I wouldn't. No. Well, I wouldn't have a gun with me.
Perfect.
But no. I hope some of the researchers we don't with hear that clip. But
No, he's kidding. He's kidding.
I don't know what I mean. I guess really, like, there's not much you can do. I'd probably I'd take on my phone and try to get a video, obviously.
Okay, so you still think you have the wherewithal to be like, well, I got to get this on film, or would you be like, F this, I'm out of here? Oh, and by the way, if you guys have the desire to swear, you can. It's a podcast. But would you be like, F this, I'm out of here, or would you try and stand your ground and get some video and photos?
I guess you can't really say it until you're in the moment.
True.
But I think I would, you know, hopefully I'd be brave enough to stay and try to get some videos. But then if it came at me, you know, like depending on how much time I had and how far away it was, you know, I'd probably start running and try to send the video somewhere in case it got me, but so they'd still get the proof. But yeah.
All right.
I mean, I've come pretty close face to face with like bears and stuff.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? Oh, yeah. So you've come close with bears. All right. So, and you kind of were like, cool, or were you like, because look, that's my worst fear is if I'm out hunting for a Sasquatch, I'm not afraid of finding a Sasquatch. I'm afraid of finding a mountain lion or a bear. So what happened with the bear?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I spent the summer up, you know, beside a Algonquin park. So we were just driving through a Algonquin park and I saw some bears on the side of the road, and we pulled over and I kind of, they were smaller bears, right? There were two of them. And, you know, I went down the road, hopped in like a little ditch where there was a bunch of shrubs and stuff. And then I kind of started going through them, and then the bears were right there, but they were smaller ones though. So it wasn't too scary.
Okay,
but
good.
A bigger bear, I'd really probably crap my pants. But.
All right, Nick, I'm throwing it in your direction. What would you do if you come face to face with Sasquatch?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably try to get a video as well, but I'd probably be scared just like Ryan, because some of the speakers have said, you know, the only time you see a Bigfoot is when they want you to see them.
Yep.
So, like, they might want me to get out of there. That's why they're showing themselves to me. So I'd probably be scared as well. I'd try to get a video, but try to get some form of evidence.
All right, so you're going the brave route as well. I appreciate it. But all right, so Allison, how about you?
I guess probably along the same lines as what they said. I mean, obviously you can't see one and then, you know, go home and say, I saw a Sasquatch if you don't have proof, right? Or at least
True.
you look a little ridiculous. But I'd try to get a video, depending on how close it was to me. But
all right,
yeah,
all three of you are braver than me.
Definitely try to get some footage or something.
Look, I would do this. I would say the same, but when it comes right down to it, I don't, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. We'll see what happens when it happens. But good Lord, I mean, I'd like to. Don't get me wrong, but still. Now, do you guys get school credit for this?
No,
What?
unfortunately.
Come
not.
on.
I think we should, but
Who do I got to talk to for this crap? Come on.
yeah, like
There's a lot of work.
we put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we have like a meeting once a week, but you know, we email so many researchers, and you know, we're trying to get other schools into it too. So like we're in the news like 3 times a week.
Hey,
like,
look, I never heard of Trent University prior to this, so you're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, there's tons. I can't even, like, you know, off the top of my head remember all the, like, I think this week alone we're supposed to be, like, I had something on iHeartRadio for the second time last night, and then there's an article coming out in the Toronto Sun this weekend, and then we're going on Global News like on Monday. So like in a 4-day period, that's like 3 major news. You know what I mean?
Whoa. And then this podcast. Come on, count this one too.
I mean, you obviously know I'm on the podcast, but yeah, and obviously you guys too. But
so wait, let me ask you a question. Speaking of the news article, the one that I read on the air that got you, that someone reached out to you and said, "Hey, you know, this idiot's talking about you." So tell me, what's up with Eugene Morin?
Oh, is that the professor?
Yeah, that freaking hater.
I've never even heard of that guy before the article. I guess
Really?
the CBC reporter, I guess, I don't know.
Dude.
I mean, I thought the CBC reporter was pretty nice and everything, but
No, he's great.
I don't know if you heard about this at all, but in like the BFRO Facebook page, Matt Moneymaker went on like a pretty long, like a 4-page long, you know, bit of a, I guess, a rant you could call it, but you know, kind of defending us, saying like, oh, like they kind of, you know, misbetrayed us and tried to make it sound, because he talked to Matt for a while. We didn't even know he was going to reach out to Matt or the professor. Yeah, or Eugene, I guess that's his name.
Yeah, no, like I was like, wait, where's this hater coming from? In the middle of the article, all of a sudden, I was like, no, I don't like this guy. Let's get back to the cool people that are actually talking about Sasquatch instead of one guy going, well, I don't believe in it. All right, suck it, man.
Yeah, and like I think like Matt was kind of pissed that he took the quotes that kind of just made the club sound a bit ridiculous.
Yep, me too.
Like,
yep.
Yeah, and same with the professor. I thought the professor, like, you know, I didn't think he said anything too, like, you know, I thought it was reasonable stuff for him to say. And like, we never even heard of I don't think any of us had a class with them or anything. But yeah, I mean, you know, if that's kind of the price though, to be in the CBC and have people know about the work we're doing though, you know, to me, it's definitely worth it.
No, and you guys came off great in the article, and like I said, the article was like, I was like, oh, I really like it. You come off intelligent. You want to talk about Sasquatch. You don't want to belittle it and say the Bigfoot. Like, yeah, totally get it. Everything you said, and then like I said, right in the middle was like this downer dude for no reason. I was like, all right, scrap that dude. Let's get back to the cool people.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. I mean, I was just surprised because we had like, you know, again, like no idea he was going to reach out to any, you know, either of them. So, but I mean, I still think it's great though, because like, you know, a lot of people reached out from seeing the article.
That's cool.
So, you know, it did do a lot for us, and we got, you know, like more contacts, a lot, like researchers reached out, like, you know, important research that had researchers that had like, you know, really, you know, I thought valuable stuff for us to hear.
No, that's awesome. I think that's the way you should do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's great. And, you know, I think the more people are aware of this, the more get behind it. And, you know, we want more schools to get involved. So there's more academics behind this and more resources going to this, because there's a real, you know, animal here and real discovery to be made.
Definitely.
So,
now, are you hoping
that everyone knows? Are
you hoping that you can like go over to this school and then go hunt in their area? Or like, what is your dream for this? If you could have a dream for it, what would it be?
I guess I just want everyone that wants to know that there's really something here, and so much great evidence and great people behind it. And I'd love for other schools to get involved, so there's more, you know, like there's a lot of stigma around this, obviously, you know, we get that a lot. But I think, you know, the more academic institutions that get behind this, you know, there's more students that want to know, there's more resources. I think that's really important. That's something researchers have kind of stressed to me. Like, it's great you guys are university doing this, because, you know, for those reasons, it's very important. So that's, you know, that's a big goal for us.
Yeah, I'll say, like, I've got listeners around the world, and I've got a lot of listeners that have reached out to me with their own Sasquatch stories. So, I mean, they're like you were saying, there is something there, and it's unfortunate that there's still a stigma in 2022, that there's still a stigma about saying, I saw something, I don't know what it was, here's what it looked like.
Yeah, exactly. And it you know, it just sucks on so many levels, because I think, you know, people like are really interested in this stuff. Like, we get, like, you know, obviously, you know, you guys and like all these different media sources, but like just so many students, like, you know, most clubs at our university have maybe like 15 kids, you know what I mean?
That's what
like,
I expected.
Almost 150. Like, I don't know,
nuts.
Like, I'm pretty sure we're the largest in the school. Yeah, so it's like, it's great, just, you know, so many people, you know, whether they believe or not, like, they have a genuine interest in it and want to know more. And, you know, I think it's so great because it's so interesting, you know, it's such a cool topic. I
agree completely. Look, I've like I said, I've got listeners around the world, especially in Canada. Reach out to these guys and tell them places to go, tell them your stories, tell them your sightings, tell them where to look, because that's how they're going to find them. And I would like nothing more if you guys were the ones to say, have 100% proof that Sasquatch exist, because now I have your email and I'm going to bug the crap out of you if it is you that gets it. But no, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, it really would be. And, you know, it's so cool because, I mean, you know, when we started the club, like, we thought like, oh, we will be able to research and talk and, you know, share ideas and stuff. We never thought we'd be getting like the BFRO coming out, you know, Todd Standing, Dr. Meldrum, like,
yeah,
you know, all these other researchers and like all this, I never thought we'd get like any, big attention or, on podcast and things like that. And now like at this rate, like it's, like it's pretty crazy, but I think it just goes to show like how, important this is and how much people want to know about this.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Now let me ask, I'll go with Allison. Allison, who is the better Sasquatch call, you or the guys?
That's a good question. I'd probably say it's the guys.
What? Oh, come on. I was hoping to be you. I'm not going to make you do it. Don't worry. If you would have said you, I would have been like, now do it. I'm not that kind of interviewer, but all right. So does anybody there is there one person in your group that's like, hey, we need a Sasquatch call. Do it.
I don't know. I wouldn't really say we have one person. I mean, really whoever, is kind of feeling it that night, I guess, in and out, I don't know. My voice isn't very loud, so it's not usually me, but yeah, just whoever wants to give it a go that night.
That's cool. Like, hey, someone's got to do it. I won't be the one. I've never done it. Every outing that I've done, and I've done quite a few, I'm not doing the Sasquatch call. That's not on me. I'll listen. I won't do the call. I'm just shy, I guess. I'm Sasquatch shy. All right, so we've gotten to the 30-minute part, and so I wanted to find out. All right, let me see. All right. Now's the time to do a reminder of how everybody can find you, how they could reach out, what you would like people to reach out with, because I just been kind of throwing stuff out there, but what do you guys want to see or hear from people?
Really, like, don't be afraid to reach out no matter like what level you're on. If you, even if you just want to talk to us, but like, especially reach out if you've had an encounter, especially if you've had an encounter in Ontario, if you're a researcher on any level, if you have any information to share with us, please reach out. And, same with media. Like, we want to share this with as many people as we can and, do as much as this with we can. Because it's, it's really important that people are starting to take this seriously and learn about it. And so we, on any level, just please reach out to us.
All right. What's the email address one more time?
Oh yeah. Sasquatch Society at trentu.ca.
All right, perfect. Or they can find you anywhere, any social media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's pretty much it in terms of reaching out. Just any level, just big, small, whatever you want to talk about. If you've had anything to tell us, or just anything, feel free to reach out. We're here.
Awesome. Well, now I'll pass it. Now I'll throw it over to you. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you have something you want to talk about, you can be like, no, we're good. We kind of covered it. But I want to make sure that I give you the opportunity to throw out anything that you want to throw out.
We want to like spread this message as far as we can, really. And, we want everyone to know about this animal and that, this isn't just a joke. This is really something serious. And just like there's, I think people, they hear about Bigfoot and it's like, oh, haha, but there's so many academics behind it now, like way more than I ever realized. Like, I don't just mean at our school. I don't mean our students, like, people like other academics working, all around the world where like we were talking to, Todd Standing this week, and he had like, some pretty impressive names that he's been working with on, I think he's working out in Alberta right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just there's like really something here, and there's a lot of scientific evidence that, we're lucky enough to get to hear about every week. So I hope, people just, start to take it more seriously. And I think, again, with the reaching out, if there's anything anyone wants to reach out or hear about, or any questions, or just get in touch, let us know we're here. And
only students can be members, correct?
Yeah, technically in the club, only students can be members of the club, but we're going to try to maybe do like a website or something this summer, cool. where, people, just anyone who wants to, come and see all the information we have, or, we'll probably put out some videos and things like that. We want to be able to, we have a lot of people, message us and are like, oh, this is so cool. Like, would I be able to come to the meeting? And unfortunately, because of the way, like our school club set up, we can only let students go, but,
sure.
Yeah, so that's, it's unfortunate, but we want to be able to fix that, because we have so many people message us and be like, oh, I'd love to hear this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would even love to, if I'm from the Detroit area, so it wouldn't be that far to go up to Ontario. But like, I just think it's cool. in general when people can kind of get together and talk about a topic that they're scientifically interested in. I'm not just interested, but scientifically interested in. And do you guys have any merch? Because that's what I'm always interested in. You have any merch?
We don't, but I actually have a friend that works at like a company that does that, who was asking if we wanted to make stuff.
Do it. I'll buy. Look, hey, you put out merch and you email me. Hey, we got merch. You got a guaranteed sale. I'll rep your merch.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do it. Cause like my friend, like it's just said, send us the logo. I could design a shirt. So we should. I'll email you about that after if you want. And I
would love it. Seriously,
we do that. Yeah.
Hey, this was awesome. I can't thank you guys enough. This is so cool.
Yeah. And then this summer too, we plan to go, in Ontario, Northern Ontario, we plan to do some expeditions, and then up in Quebec. But if you're, in around Ontario, or, well, really anywhere in the world, we'd love to hear about your encounters. But like, especially if you're in Ontario, please reach out and tell us, what you've seen, what you have, because, we love hearing from witnesses too. It helps us a lot.
How long do you guys go out for when you do your expeditions?
It kind of depends. Like, if we have like school the next day, we'll usually go out for like a few hours in the night and try to be back by like 1 or 2. But, this summer we plan to go out for, like if we can manage to stay up all night, we plan to stay up all night and camp out in the woods for a while.
Come on, you're young. You can stay up all night. If I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, it gets harder with every year, I think, but we can still do it.
Dude, and I've got gray in my beard and I can do it. You can do it. Come on.
But I think the other thing too is, we have, like I'm not the scientist in the group, but we have some pretty interesting new DNA stuff, or DNA testing technologies to try to use in like rivers and streams in different parts of the forest.
Oh, cool.
To not just, obviously going around and looking is like kind of the traditional way, but we've, really done our homework now, and we have a lot of new kind of scientific ways that I think are pretty unexpected, based on what people have seen on like other, if you go watch Expedition Bigfoot or Finding Bigfoot, like I think, that's kind of what people expect us to be doing, but we have a lot of ways I think that would like surprise people that we're going to be doing this summer that could really help lead us to something, I think. And then the witness encounters too, like that really helps us figure out like where stuff's going on right now.
Oh, definitely. Well, like, all right. Yeah. So let me throw it out there just in case it isn't clear. If you guys discover Bigfoot or you have any kind of sightings or anything or footage, please let me know, because I will definitely, pass it off to my listeners, because we love hearing about this stuff, and you guys are out there doing it, and I love it.
Yeah, we absolutely will let you know, especially, right now we probably don't, just because we can't really leave Peterborough. We can't go much further outside because we have school all the time. But this summer, I really think we have a chance of, finding some type of evidence, whether it's some, DNA we've sampled out of rivers and stuff like that, or even citing, footprints, especially, I'm hoping that witnesses will get in touch and we'll be able to oh yeah, you have one behind you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So hopefully that way we'll be able to put a lot of information together and a lot of scientific stuff I don't think people will really be expecting us to do, and have some good results.
I love it. I can't thank you all enough. Once again, I didn't expect to get more than one, so having Ryan and Nick and Allison on the show from the Trent University Sasquatch Society. You guys are awesome. Thank you for reaching out, because I was really excited when I found out about you and I really wanted to talk with you guys. So I'm happy to talk with you. This was awesome.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having us on. We're super happy to do it. And, we love sharing everything we do with, everyone we can. So it's really great to be able to do this, and thanks so much for having us.
All right, see what I mean? They're cool as hell, right? And they're doing like the cool work. They're using science to try and prove Sasquatch, which, as you know, like I said in that interview, that's my thing. I like it when people try to use science to prove the paranormal. I can't thank them enough for reaching out and chatting with me for a little bit today. I had a blast talking to all three of them. I feel terrible that I forgot Allison's name like almost immediately, but I do that with everybody. So the fact that I got one name out of the three, remembered one name out of three is saying something. But thank you so much to Ryan, Nick, and especially Allison, because, I forgot her name, for being on the show. That was a blast. And they're, like I told them on the podcast or in the interview, they're welcome on this podcast anytime. I'd love to do follow-ups with them. I'd love to hear what they're up to and where they're at with their society. And also, I want to rock some of their merch. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more paranormal news. We are back, and I lied. We're not back with more paranormal news. We're back with more Paranormal Almanac. And on this edition, I want to tell you about a very bizarre case of something paranormal. It's got a bit of everything, basically. It's hard to prove or disprove. And if you know this story, maybe you won't get a lot out of it, but I think you might. I think you still will. But if you don't know this story, you know what? I'll take that back. Even if you know this story, you're going to get something new out of this, because at the end, I'll tell you about something new. But if you don't know this story, oh boy, are you in for one hell of a ride. It's bizarre. I mean, it's really freaking weird. I love everything about it. This one starts way, way back in 1985 in Dodleston, England. And if someone says you're pronouncing Dodleston wrong, it's Dodleston. I looked it up. I looked it up like 4 different ways, and they all say Dodleston. So I'm going to go with Dodleston, England. It's near Wales. And this happened when Ken Webster bought an 18th century meadow cottage. And right off the bat, strange shit happened. Now, Ken woke up. The first strange shit that I really want to talk about is this one. Ken woke up to find 6-toed footprints in the dust that seemed to walk up the walls between the bathroom and the kitchen. Now, he thought that either his girlfriend, Debbie, or maybe the guy that was staying with them, Nicola, he's nicknamed Nick, I'll call him Nick from this point on, was playing a practical joke on him. But they both went, no, it wasn't us. And they are like, well, maybe it was you. No, it was Nick. It was like, no, it was definitely Debbie. Debbie's like, no, it was you, Ryan, or it was you, Ken. And no. Like, so they all kind of blamed it on each other. And they thought that was a weird prank. Remember, 6-toed footprints. So Nick says, well, the walls need painting anyway, and he painted over the 6-toed footprints. The next morning, they were back. Not only were the footprints back, but this time they found a stack of cat food tins stacked up in the shape of a pyramid. They also said that they were seeing shadows in the halls and thought, it was very vague, but thought an invisible presence was in the cottage now. Just wait, it gets weirder. So, like I said, it's 1895. No, it's 1985. Since it's oh my God, Kurt, no. Since it's 1985, computers were just starting to be a big deal. Ken brought home his BBC microcomputer, which, if you don't know, and I don't expect anybody to know, it's a very early computer that really wasn't much of a computer at all. It was mostly like a word processor where, you'd turn it on, it'd have a really crappy tiny little screen that would say, like, what do you want to do? You want to create a Word document? There's not a lot of computer to this computer. Definitely no internet. So he brought it home on loan from his job at the local school to kind of like show it off to Debbie. And also Nick wanted to use it for the word processor. Now, a lot of podcasts that have done this story or TV shows that have done this story, and there's not a lot, but I mean, the ones that have really focused on the word processor and the computer chip and all the microchip that was for it that did this word processor. And they seem to think that's very useful information. I don't think so. So I'm just going to say, I want it noted to everyone. This computer wasn't hooked up to a modem. There was no outside internet, no outside way that information could be downloaded onto their computer. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. So Ken brings home this tiny little weird-ass BBC microcomputer, and things kind of went batshit crazy from the get-go. Ken said almost immediately they got a message on the computer, not an IM, but a file called KDN appeared with a Word doc message. So he's like, well, that's weird. He kind of wanted to see what Nick was writing, but Nick said, I didn't write anything yet. So he opens up this Word doc file called KD as in David, N as in Nancy, and or K as in Ken, D as in Debbie, and N as in Nick, because that's what it was really about, saying, Ken, Deb, Nick. True are the nightmares of a person that fears. Safe are the bodies of the silent world. Turn, pretty flower, turn towards the sun, for you shall grow and sow. But the flower reaches too high and withers in the burning light. Get out your bricks. Pussy cat went to London to seek fame and fortune. Faith must not be lost, for this shall be your redeemer. Look, I don't know much about poems, but if I saw that, I'd think, oh, well, Nick obviously got really fucking high and wrote this weird-ass poem, because this means nothing to me. Safe are the bodies of the silent world. Okay. Turn, pretty flower, turn towards the sun, for you shall grow and sow. Okay, I can understand that. Everybody's growing, and, as we go through life, you got to, you grow. The flower reaches too high and withers in the burning light. Sure, the whole thing about Icarus wings. Sure, why not? Get out your bricks. Nope, no idea. Pussycat went to London to seek fame and fortune. I don't know who Pussycat is. Why they went to London to seek fame and fortune? I don't know, because this doesn't happen in London. As I already told you, it happens in Dodleston near Wales. The next one, faith must not be lost, for this shall be your redeemer. All right, so obviously someone that's really into some kind of religious thing, that loves to have some flowery prose. Well, they all said, I didn't write that, you write that, I didn't write that, I didn't write that. They didn't know who it was from or why they received it. Then a few days later, they got a second message saying, I write on behalf of many. What strange words you speak. You are a worthy man who has a fanciful woman, and you live in my house, he says, who dwell in my house, with lights which devil makes. It was a great crime to have bribed my house. Signed, L.W., the initials L.W. All right, so if that wasn't weird enough that someone seemed to be leaving files in Ken's computer when no one's around, the language seemed to be 16th to 17th century speech. And it's obviously talking about you've stolen or bribed my house. So this person lives in the same house. He knows that Ken has Deb as his girlfriend. They dwell in his house. Lights with the devil make. Sure, electricity. That freaks someone out from the 16th century. Seems weird. But it gets even weirder, because then stuff started moving in the house. The cat food pyramids happened again. Shadows of All starts happening more and more and more again. So Ken's like, all right, what the crap? So he creates his own little Word document file. Again, it's not an email. It's just creating a Word document file. And he responds with questions about like, hey, where are you from? When are you from? He says, Dear LW, thank you for the message. We are sorry for disturbing you. What would you like us to do? Did you live in a house on this land about 1620? Do you want us to tell you more about our time? Why write a poem? Who is Edward Grey? Apparently Edward Grey was mentioned. I don't freaking know. Doesn't matter. Keep going. Is he related to the Egerton family? Do you have a family? Is the King James or Charles Stuart? What is the charge house? Was this village called Dodleston in your life, and how many families live there? Thank you very much for your messages. Thank you for not making us afraid. Ken, Debbie, and John. John was a friend of theirs. Then they went to the pub. They were like, oh, cool, I left my little message. I'm going to go to the pub. When they got back, yep, they got a response. And the response says, 'Twas an honest farm of oak and stone. And it's all spelled funky. Farm spelled with an E, honest spelled with an E, oak is spelled O-K-E. It is helpful that you should tell me about thy time. Dost thou hath horse? Edmund Gray, brother of John Gray, lives in Kinnertone Hall. Thy king, of course, is Henry VIII, who is 46 years old. I we woot of King James. All right. Mine charge house is a place of lore, schooling, LW, 28th March, 1521. So now they got a date. LW said, yeah, here we go. So over the next 18 months, I almost said 10 months, but it's more than that, 18 months, they kept getting messages. They found out that LW initials were for Lucas Wayne Man. Now, Lucas kept writing to them in odd 16th century verbiage, so Ken decided he would ask all kinds of questions. like what college he went to, who was the reigning king, like all this stuff to try and like really suss out like who's doing this. Because in his mind, they're like, this is some kind of weird prank. I don't know how these people are doing it. Although they keep leaving for the pub and then coming back and then the shit's on there. So maybe you just stay there and watch the computer. But that's logic and reason. Let's keep going. So they figured out that Lucas lived on the site of Meadow Cottage during Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine Parr, sometimes between 1543 and 1547. He kept various livestock on the land around his house. He'd been married with his son, but both wife and child died of the plague in 1517. They also found out that he studied at Brasenose College, Oxford, and knew Erasmus, having met him 3 times in all. All right, cool, whatever. So they're finding out details about him. And the interesting thing is, like I said, Ken works at a school. So Ken goes to the school. He starts talking to this guy that's in the English department. He'll be involved in the story in a minute. And the guy's like, all right, some of the words that he's using that you told me that he's using are correct, and you shouldn't know that. There's no reason that a person should know this. Remember, this is 1985. It's not now where you can Google how to talk like I'm from 1543. No, you kind of really have to know how to use the verbiage and the nouns and when to use what tense. So it's very bizarre. And it became clear that the messages are being sent by someone who were alive in the past. So Lucas becomes suspicious about Ken and Debbie on his own right, because he's like, hey, look, you evil devil people, how are you communicating with me? I'll get to that in a minute, how this communication happened back and forth. But he's like, Lucas is like, I'm going to try and catch him in a lie, saying they can't possibly be from the future. In his time, there was no Jesus College in Oxford. It was founded in 1571. So he thinks that anyone from the future would know this is a given. So he says, I'm going to give him some false information. And he throws out a couple of things that are obviously wrong. If you lived in the future, you should know this. And they got it right. And he's like, oh, okay, maybe you aren't the devil. You're not really scaring me. This is weird. I don't understand how it's happening. Same as, Ken and Debbie and Nick. They don't understand how it's happening. So he's like, all right, I didn't want to tell you this because I thought you guys were trying to trick me or the devil or this was a test of some kind for, God's testing me. My name really isn't Lucas. It's Thomas Harden, or Howarden, basically, but Thomas Harden, and he was worried about being imprisoned for this communication. So there's a lot of people, let me pause right here to say, there's a lot of people that have investigated this story. And they found that a Thomas Harden did exist. He was a vicar of a church in Gloucester, in the 1550s, and this would not have been known in 1985 by anybody. So it's interesting that they got the info right before Google was even a thing. So you got to keep that in mind, that it's 1985. Information's not just anywhere. Even if you went to the library, you wouldn't even find out most of this stuff. But they're getting information right. They're getting the wording, the spelling, the tenses, the information about people and events happening at that time. They're getting it right, but they're getting it right in 1985. So point one for this could be real. So the time seems right. They're talking to somebody from 1546, sure. He said 1521 at first, and then he says 1546. But still, they're like, we got to be getting pranked by somebody. And Ken said he changed his mind when Thomas mentioned something that only people in the house could know. Thomas mentioned a photo that Ken had next to the computer of a Jaguar. Not the car, not the animal, a Jaguar car. And the message said, I have found your picture of the cart, but is it a crude thing? For without the horse, it won't go far. Interesting. How is he seeing things in the house? It really seems that Thomas can see things that they're leaving around in the house. And it's never really clear how he's seeing things. Is he remote viewing it? Even the whole computer part of it, like I said, I'll get to that in a minute, is very odd in Thomas's timeline. Remember, Lucas's name is real Thomas. In Thomas's timeline in the 1500s. But he seems to be able to look around the house and see what's happening in 1985. And now they're really freaked out. Ken and Debbie and Nick, they're like, whoever's sending these messages know things that are going on in this house. How are they doing it? Now, a friend of Thomas's starts communicating because it turns out that Thomas has been arrested and is being held by the local sheriff. The local sheriff's name is Sir Thomas Foulshurst. And he's being arrested for his communication with the light box, or as they call it, the Leamsboist or Leamsboxed. The light box is the computer that Thomas is using back in the day. So somehow, probably from Thomas going, what the fuck is happening? There's this weird box in my house. I can speak to it because it does seem like he's just talking to it and it's putting the words on the screen. Some people or some sites say that the light box is actually just kind of like projected onto his chimney or something. It's really kind of odd, but I don't know if that part is true. It seems more accurate to say that he has some version of a computer. He's calling it a light box or a Leamsboist or a Leamsbox, and it's in his house. And according to his friend that's communicating, yep, Thomas is being held by the local sheriff, Sir Thomas Foulshurst, and it's bad. So Thomas does get released, but he's held under house arrest, and he starts resuming communications and confessing like, I'm really scared of what's going to happen, my fate that's awaiting him. He's like, dude, because of this freaking communication, I think I'm going to get killed. I'm going to get executed. Then things get weirder. Because Thomas writes, wait a minute, I'm confused. Because Ken says, hey, we're living in the year 1985. What do you want to know? And he goes, whoa, I'm confused. I thought you were also from 2109, like your friend who brought the box of lights, pray. Like, hey, man, I thought you guys were from 2109 because the dude that brought me this box of lights that I'm typing on or talking to, I thought you were from 2109. He also reveals that the Leamsboist or box of light was brought to his house by someone called One from the year 2109. One, O-N-E, from the year 2109. So Thomas had been under the impression that Ken was also from 2109. And he's like, what do you mean 1985? What are you talking about? So they figure out this means that, Thomas, he's talking about the computer. They don't know anybody from 2109 because it's 1985. So he says, you know what? That's weird. Let me try to message the friend from 2109 too. I mean, it's not any weirder than chatting with someone from like 1546. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to try this. So he writes a little message. Again, it's not an email. It's just like a Word doc. He opens it up, creates it, and he writes to 2109. And yep, he gets a response. That response is, Ken, Deb, Peter. This is Peter Trinder. That's Ken's school work friend, the guy that had the English degree that was so intrigued by the language used in the messages that he was like, this has to be real. There's no way that Ken could know this. He's actually kind of funny. He did an interview and he was like, look, I'm not saying that nobody from 1985 could know it, but Ken sure as shit couldn't. He wouldn't, he's not smart enough to know this. So he was like, I don't know. I don't get this. I want to be part of this. So now it's Ken, Deb, and Peter because Nick had fucked off by this point. They said, we're sorry that we can give you only two choices. One, that you either have your predicament explained in such a non-rhyme way that you may have instant understanding, or two, try to understand that you three have a purpose that shall in your lifetime change the face of history. We, 2109, must not affect your thoughts directly, but give you some sort of guidance that will allow room for your own destiny. All we can say is, we are all part of the same God, whatever he is, ? Yeah, that's a weird response. They're calling themselves they're calling themselves 2109. They said that, we can kind of tell you some shit, but not a lot of it. You have to kind of do your own thing because you have your own destiny. So that already sounds like legit time traveler talk to me. But yeah, Ken is now talking to the past and now the future. So while 2109 starts leaving dozens of messages, Ken is, reading those, but he's also worried about Thomas because he said that his life was in danger because of the light box and all that stuff. So Ken's like, I got to figure out a way to help Thomas. So he checks the messages, finds a reference to Henry Mann, who is the Dean of Chester, and he finds info that Mann had in 1533 communicated with Elizabeth Barton, the so-called Maid of Kent. Now, this Elizabeth Barton was like a Catholic nun. She made a bunch of prophecies critical of Henry VIII's marriage to Anne Boleyn. If you don't know that one, it doesn't end good. She was executed in 1534. So Ken relays all of this in Thomas. Like, hey, man, here's all of the info I can find. Hopefully you can use this information somehow. And Thomas's friend said, it didn't work, and Thomas is going to trial. Now, they find out, and a couple other messages a little bit later on, that Thomas is actually kind of released, released to the home arrest again, basically house arrest again, but he's kept alive to keep the light box working. And so they're like, what the hell? So Thomas told people about the light box, and guess what? Someone else starts messaging them. That damn sheriff himself, Thomas Foulshurst. Stay with me. It's about to get weirder. All right, so now we've got the sheriff who knows about the light box. Thomas's friend, who I don't know their name, they know about the light box. Thomas, who knows about the light box. We got Ken, Debbie, and Peter, and we got 2109. So 2109 is still leaving dozens and dozens of messages for Ken and Debbie, claiming they're involved in an experiment or some similar project with a higher purpose. Now, people, again, there's a lot of people that have investigated this. I went down a lot of freaking rabbit holes for this story, but people who have investigated this for spelling or verbal errors, like kind of not from the time, noted that not only was Thomas and the sheriff and Thomas's friend speaking correctly, but 2109 communicates in a very different tone and language, using scientific terms, but also giving little details away about their agenda other than annoyance at Ken and Debbie when, for example, they find out, Lucas's real name, and they're like, whoa, you're not supposed to know that. You're supposed to just call him Lucas. So it sounds like 2109 kind of taught or guided Thomas to be like, hey, just tell him LW, don't give him your real name. And 2109 seems to be worried that this information that they're getting will disrupt their plans. They're kind of going outside the boundaries of what the plan was. So 2109 is very worried about them. And Ken says that during the messages, things would go missing around the house. And Thomas would say he found them and has them. So again, it's very weird. Is the house like time slipping? Is Thomas time slipping? Is Ken time slipping? Or is 2109 messing with shit from the future? And then Debbie goes, you know what's weirder? I'm dreaming of Thomas, and I'm getting more information from the dreams that seems to be accurate as well. Then a pipe flew through the air, hitting Debbie straight on in the face. So take that, Debbie. Furniture piles up against a wall. And I mean everything. Imagine everything you got in the living room. You walk into your house because they went to the pub like they always do. You come back from the pub and all of your furniture in the living room is just bam up against one wall, like stacked, like just thrown. Like she said, it was like a giant flicked it with his finger. They find chalk writing under the rug in the living room. They hear sounds of walking and, more regular this time, footprints, like the regular footprints, that is. Regular footprints were found all over the house. And they go, all right, is it Thomas or is it 2109? But one of you two guys are like really messing with us. And while all this crazy crap is happening, Thomas is asked to leave by his landlords because of the Lightbox communications. So even though he seems to be under house arrest and they were talking to the sheriff for a little bit, seems like that kind of got resolved because the sheriff was like, oh crap, this Lightbox seems to be real. Something's happening here. Then his landlords were like, get the hell out, you heathen. So they boot him out. So Thomas leaves a final message wishing Ken and his friends well, stating that he'll go to Bristol to buy a horse, then see if he's welcome again at Brasenose. That's the college over in Oxford. He says that he'll write a book about the events and hopes that someday they might meet so they can read Ken his book and Ken can read Thomas his book. Because Ken said, I'm writing a book too. They said, cool, we'll kind of swap books. It'll be amazing. So that's the end of Ken. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the end of Thomas. Ken's still here. Don't worry. That's the end of Thomas. That was the last Thomas message. And people are going, okay, he said he's going to write a book. He's going to leave the book. And someday we'll find the book. And 2109 says, this is a little bit later on, but he says, the book by Thomas will be found one day. Curt here. So far, nothing. From 1985 to 2022, so far, nothing. So I kind of like read you some of 2109's messages. I'm not going to read them all because it would take forever. But let me skip ahead. Because of all the weird crap happening to Debbie and 2109 going cuckoo, Ken's like, all right, we got to figure out something's going on. And he invites a paranormal investigation team called the Society for Psychical Research. So he invites them to the cottage to investigate. And John and Dave, some people say John, Dave, and Dave from the team show up. They show up 3 times. And they said, nothing's really happening when we're here. When we're keeping everybody under close evaluation, doing it scientifically, nothing's really happening. And they had this really cool idea, and I like this a lot. They made Ken and Debbie stay out of the room with the computer in it. So they're like, you get the hell out of the room. They probably went to the pub. It seems like they always did. So then John and Dave, the society, whatever you want to call it, Society for Psychical Research, they get on the computer. And they ask 10 questions to either Thomas or 2109. And then they delete the questions before Ken and Debbie could see them. Their thought being was that, all right, if it isn't Ken or Debbie responding, then we'll know. Like something will respond. They'll understand. They'll read the questions. They'll answer them. There's no way that Ken or Debbie can know the questions. So let's see if Thomas or 2109 actually answer our questions. Using science to prove the paranormal. I love it. Great idea, especially for 1985 Paranormal Society. So, they told Ken to let them know when or if he ever gets a response. And several days later, Ken says, hey, you know what? There's a response, and I don't understand it, so come on down. And the response was, David, John, David, you interfere with communication next time you decide to perform your little experiment. You must be clear from here. We suggest you try someone else to sit with Debbie. Yes, we are what you would call a tachyon universe, but your understanding is incorrect. We ask nothing more of you than thank you to carry on as you would prefer. We will have John present if given choice, or you may bring another as mentioned. No, it is a no concern of us that this is not proved. We will give you a plotting of a star next time. We move at a speed so that we can cover every point in your time and universe. We have no form. We feed of a neat energy, neat is spelled incorrectly, that you would not have heard of. 2109. And they were like, okay, is that right? And John and David said, 2109 hasn't really answered the questions, but it seemed that they had picked up all the questions left for them and answered them in the same order. So basically, yeah, it answered. 2109 answered, but it didn't really give us the answers we were looking for. So obviously they asked very specific questions about, like, where are you at in the universe? Are you part of this universe? Are you real? What do you look like? I mean, there's obviously specific things that you can get from these weird answers. And it seems like 2109 answered it correctly. Even weirder. I'm telling you, it's bizarre. They said, yeah, like, it's definitely not Ken or Debbie doing this, but we don't know who is doing this. And frankly, it didn't really matter. And they just kind of left. And I don't mean left the house. They left the Paranormal Society. They just fucking fucked off and never returned. Yeah, that's a weird response to this. You're all into the paranormal. You ask this supposed time traveler some questions. You get answers, not the answers that you were hoping for, but answers to questions that you asked. And you were like, nope, I'm out of here. So maybe they were just a little bit scared and then they left. But they left nonetheless, never to return. Now, the papers heard about this, and they actually wrote about it in a local paper on page 3 called, Verily, I'm a Computer Spook. Now, let me see if I can read this to you. It's some of it's kind of obscured. It talks about the computer, blah, blah, blah. They said that a floppy disk from a cod piece, his mastery of 20th century scientific skills is rather impressive. That's the opinion of economics teacher Ken Webster, whose micro has been haunted by Mr. Harden for a year. Obscure? Ken now quite looks forward to the messages from the past that pop up on his monitor. Mainly they're questions about the present day, which Mr. Harden understandably finds baffling, but much of the historical information he feeds back to the Ken and a friend, English specialist Peter Trinder, is interesting and correct. Mr. Harden calls Bristol Brighto an obscure but genuine form and refers to a minor author called Mr. Mutanius by his then fashionable Oxford nickname of Rufus. So again, specific information that was not available in 1985 about the 1500s, Thomas is getting right. Ken, a doubting soul, originally thought that someone was playing a prank. Now, more than 150 messages later, he's not so sure. There definitely was a Thomas Harden who was the dean of Brasenose College Chapel at Oxford in the late 1530s. Boom, confirmation. He was expelled for refusing to remove the Pope's name from prayer books during Henry VIII's purge on Roman Catholicism and appears to have settled for a quiet farming life in Cheshire. Well, is it genuine? The Society for Psychical Research has investigated the case no fewer than 8 times, this says. I don't know about that. I heard 3. But remains skeptical. Investigator Peter Buckall is convinced some 1985 computer hacker in Ken's village, Dodleston, Cheshire, is responsible. And Mr. Harden? Well, he told the Mail on Sunday, "Mine cook saith, I shall repent for mine adventure, and that it will come to foul issue. But methinks she be yellow, I don't know, and told her so." So basically what they're saying is that the investigator, that Peter Buckall, he was like, you know what, it's got to be a hacker, but he's not using like the phone lines or the internet or something like that. He's using the earth. It was some really weird, like, he's using the earth wire. He's just made some shit up. And people were like, no, that's not how computer or life works. So I don't think so. So the paper kind of confirmed that Thomas is getting even more shit right than I thought. And not only that, he, everything seems to be right. 150 messages. It's incredible the amount of communication back and forth between times. But then, not to be outdone, they get this message from 2109 for Peter, that's Ken's friend, to contact Gary Rowe. Now, the message says, "You may phone him at the number below, and I invite him to talk with you. When he comes, show him this and ask him what he makes of it. Peter must do the telephoning. Tell him that you got this telephone number from a UFO enthusiast, signed 2109. So now we got a new guy coming in, Gary Rowe. Gary Rowe is really kind of cool, kind of an interesting ufologist. And he read this, and he said, there's something here. There's something going on. And he started to say that he could communicate to 2109 using sealed envelopes. So basically, Ken would say like, hey, you got a message, seal it in an envelope that only Gary could read, and then Gary would respond in the envelopes, and it would just kind of like disappear, apparently. But Gary, to this day, won't really say what the messages were, except for one. Gary did say this one message. Let me read this one to you. "Greetings. I am instructed to apologize, but in any event, I would have done so of my own volition. There will be a letter hopefully this weekend. I am also instructed to apologize to Ken and Debbie. I must try and answer your last letter. It would appear that you were more important than I had realized in the scheme of things. Signed, Gary." It's bizarre. I can't wait to find out more from Gary if he'll answer, but Gary is very elusive with his answers, and it seems to be at 2109's behest. He seems to have been convinced that 2109 was a time traveler, and that not only that, but that 2109 delivered the light box to Thomas, and monitored and even sometimes altered the messages between Ken and Thomas for some unknown, reason that 2109 has. He said that 2109 knew personal things about Gary that nobody could ever possibly know and convinced him they're real, that 2109 is real. He said 2109 says that a person will come along to help and that Ken will know who that person is. So Ken was convinced that 2109 gave Gary information about the future. And I got to say, I kind of believe it. After going through all these different, really weird rabbit holes, Gary is still up until like 2020 was very, very responsive to a forum all about the Dodleston Messages. And I kind of agree with Ken that Gary seems to have some information about the future, but doesn't seem to want to share it. I'm hoping that I can get Gary to share it, but I don't want to jump ahead to that point just yet. So, here is the final 2109 message to Ken. There is another person to come. They will be the help we need. You'll know them when they come. Thomas did eventually write his book and soon died shortly after. He placed it in a secure place. It shouldn't take too many years to find it. Though he wrote it in Latin with the help of a friend that he met in Oxford, the inscription reads, "Me writes this in the hope that mine fellows will one day find this book. Then may our lands be not so distant. Then may our lands be not so distant." Like I said, you got to remember, I'm trying to read this the way he wrote it, and it's all misspelled. Like writes is W-R-Y-T-S. Our is O-W-E-R. But basically he's saying, hey, me writes this book in the hope that my fellows will one day find this book. Then may our lands be not so distant. That's the final 2109 message to Ken. Again, over 18 months, hundreds of messages. That's the end of it. Now, I will say that you can read all about this. It's in a book. It's called The Vertical Plane. I think it's in the second or third printing. You can find it on Amazon. Let me warn you now, it's like 350 pages. It's a wacky read. And if you read it, then you go to these forums. You can find them very easily if you just kind of search Dodleston Messages. There's followers. There's also like a Facebook page all about the Dodleston Messages. These people are really into it. And they all speak in this kind of weird verbiage on the forums, on the Facebook pages. It's bizarre. But they seem to be harmless, and they seem to be very interested in trying to decode stuff. Not only decode stuff in the messages between Thomas and Ken and 2109 and all of everybody. Not only that, but in the book itself. They seem to think there's a lot of like Da Vinci Code kind of secret messages in the book itself. So if you do read this book, keep that in mind, that there's supposedly a secret code. And Gary seems very interested in, will people figure out this secret code? He's big into numerology as well. The book is not written by someone that's a writer. It's not exactly smooth reading. The followers of this story are seriously like kind of diehard, like armchair detectives. They take you down some seriously in-depth rabbit holes. It's bizarre. It's very interesting. And as for Gary Rowe, he kept up in the chat about the book on that line in that forums, and was asked about it. He was asked in 2017. He said how someone could contact 2109 if they wanted to keep the correspondence going. This was Gary's response. First, you should determine why you'd want to contact them. If it's to seek information from them, forget it. I believe they've left as much information as they're willing to reveal at the present time. They are not to be played with. They are not a correspondence school. You don't contact them. They contact you. Perhaps if you consider why they picked me, you might discover how you could make yourself available, should they wish to contact you. But know this, you must be a man of your word. They would have no difficulty in making you understand what they're saying. They can make the difficult easy to comprehend. Interesting. Hey, look, 2109, if you're listening, I'm a man of my word. I'm very interested in the paranormal and the science explaining the paranormal. Love time travel stuff. Gary also wrote in that forum some really cool stuff saying, I believe they can make communication possible anywhere of their choosing, and it would seem through any kind of media. If they choose to contact you, they will. You won't need any special equipment, because a lot of people think you need this freaking old-ass computer. He's like, no, you won't need any special equipment. You could, of course, request to be contacted, but I would not recommend it. It would come at a price. Now, Gary's also said this online, which I thought was very interesting. He seems like a very cool guy. I had the opportunity to investigate these happenings firsthand. No, I'm not some away with the fairies wishful believer. It's like me. He's a skeptical believer. I investigated with professional detachment, not bothered with what I could find, fake or fact. I left no stone unturned and used cutting-edge science to get to the truth. In fact, I believe it was the first computer-controlled psychic investigation recorded in the world. I don't care two hoots if nobody ever believes it. I know it really happened. It changed my life forever. It's going to change yours. The book should and will one day be ISBN recoded under the history section. It is a monumental historical marker in the ribbon of time. I tell you, man, I dig the way that Gary talks. Now, whatever Gary was told, he's not going to just give it to us, me, you, whoever. But like I said, he likes to leave clues. And up to 2020, he was on those forums kind of playing like a hotter, colder game with clues that people question him about. Now, if you've heard this story a billion times, you haven't heard this part of the story. Because I reached out to Gary. He's very easy to reach out to. He's on Facebook. He's on the forums. He leaves his address. I kind of just said, hey, you know, I was very short and sweet. I said, I do a podcast called Paranormal Almanac. I would love to talk to you. Thank you, Curt. And then I left him a little something just for him. And I got a response back. I said, Curt, I'd be pleased to talk with you, although I'm normally a very busy person and time is my most treasured possession. Gary, 100% get it. Me too. He says, I trust you understand that there will be some questions I'm not at liberty to answer. Otherwise, please feel free. I prefer emails. That way I can fit it in between my investigations. Dig this guy already. Please tell me a little bit about yourself. How old are you? What makes you interested in things paranormal? Have you had any paranormal experiences yourself? I have some astonishing cases I'm still involved in, some ongoing cases, and then something personal for me. Again, I don't want to push it with Gary, and I don't want to. There was some stuff that there's one thing that I left for Gary. He asked me about it. I responded. I asked him a bunch of questions, and my hope is that I will hear back from Gary. I really hope that he responds when he can. I think that he's legit. I really do. I think he's a skeptical believer that got looped into this by 2109. Now, some people out there think, oh, it was Gary the whole time. Why did Gary get called in? Okay, explain that to me, skeptics. How did Gary do this? Again, this computer isn't connected to anything. Are you telling me that Gary just randomly picked some weird cottage house, not close to his house, and was like, screw it, they all go to the pub every day. I'm going to break in just in case they've got a computer, and I'm going to leave them a weird message from the 1500s. Moo-ha-ha. No, that's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think Gary was responsible for this. There's a lot of people that think that Debbie was responsible because she was left alone with the computer sometimes. Maybe. I'll put a maybe under that one. I don't think really that's the case, but maybe. But explain how those answers came, how the Paranormal Society guys were able to ask questions and get answers that were relevant enough to what they wrote. It doesn't sound like they told her anything or them anything about the questions. They said they wanted it to be, they didn't want them to know anything about the questions. So how would they know there were 10 questions? How would they get 10 answers that were bizarre enough but still answered what they said? Makes no sense to me. Also, I got so many questions. Like, besides the whole, why did 2109 seemingly do this? But how about, what the hell about those six-toed footprints? Remember those? Are you telling me that Thomas had 6 toes? Or was it 2109 that said they had no form? What was the deal with the 6-toed footprints? Why? It's 1985. I get there wouldn't be a lot of photos or or evidence, but they said that there was chalk writing under the rugs. What did the chalk writing say? Maybe it's in the book. I haven't finished the book. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I've not finished the book. I don't have a lot of time. Look, like Gary said, time is very precious to me. But I'm going to finish the book, and if I get more answers, I'll let you know. But what the hell, man? Like, that's the best question for this episode. Just what the hell? This seemingly seems like it was real. There were things that were said about the 1500s that weren't known in 1985. Even though Ken went to a college, it doesn't seem like it was well known. Ken's friend himself said there was no way Ken could know some of this stuff. The verbiage was correct. The those and thous and these and those were all done correctly. Debbie, nor Ken, nor Nick, for that matter, had this kind of knowledge. So it wasn't like, oh, well, Debbie was, she studied 15th century language and just happened to talk to somebody from 15th century. No. By all intents and purposes, it seems like that is not the case. Now, I can see why shade is kind of thrown at Debbie because, again, she's left alone with the computer, in my opinion, a little way too often. Sometimes she would get home from the pub first and be like, oh, look, there's a message. Okay. Interesting. I can see why people are kind of leaning towards Debbie. I emailed her. I still haven't heard back from her, but I don't know. Like I said, this is one of these kinds of stories where I can't prove it, but I can't disprove it. And the shit that 2109 was saying is just weird enough to be not the normal thing. Like, if you think about it, in 1985, if you were to say, I want to talk about time travel stuff, you'd be like, oh, okay, cool. What do I know about time travel? There's Star Trek. They did a time travel thing. Back to the Future is really popular. I can do that. No. They didn't do any of the typical stuff. They went like X-Files time travel, like Fringe time travel, like alternate dimensions time travel. Not stuff that was, there was a ton of sci-fi books. I was reading them all. I was, in 1985, but I was alive. I was reading those, but there's nothing like obvious about what they were saying that makes me go, oh, I get it. So they read this book by Isaac Asimov and they were just spouting this nonsense. There's nothing obvious that jumps out at me. But if you have something that you're like, oh, I know why they picked 2109. Oh, I know why they did this. Obviously let me know. And going down that road, like I said, Gary seems to be very into numerology, and I like that about him, but there's supposedly a code. Now, a lot of people are like, well, if you put 2109 together with all these weird numbers in this chapter, and this chapter's mismarked, and if you put this here, like Da Vinci Code shit, that it'll give you, a QR code or a website, But I haven't seen anything that in those forums or in those chats that make me go, yes, this person is onto something. There is a larger thing that'll help us. And, where's the book? If Thomas did write a book, Thomas was real, and he wrote a book and then died shortly after, was the book turned over to the church? Because that's a very big possibility. And if that's the case, it's probably in the Vatican Library. We'll never see it again. Or did he hide it somewhere thinking like, all right, I can hide it in a place where I know that Ken will get to it? And if so, hopefully somebody, one of these thousands of armchair detectives, has actually gone to the cottage because they know where the cottage is and search the cottage, because that would be my first thing. I would metal detect and dig up under and all around that cottage. I don't care who lives there. I would do that in a heartbeat. Hopefully that's been done. If it's not, and you people are listening, go do it. Someone close to there, someone in Dodleston, go there with the metal detector. Say, hey, can I just metal detect? If I find anything, you can have it, unless it's a book, in which case, we can share the royalties or whatever. But there seems to be more to this story, and there seems to be a way to prove it. And it seems that Thomas knew enough about where Ken was living and working and everything like that, and gave hints about where we should be able to find stuff. If this truly is a Da Vinci Code, it shouldn't be that hard from 1985 to 2022 to find some proof or evidence or the book or anything, really. So I leave it up to you, listeners, and armchair detectives, and Gary, and 2109. Let's find the answers. I think it'd be very cool if there was a follow-up and there was some proof that was found. And 2109, if you want to reach out to me. Gary says not to. Gary says there's a price to pay. But, you know, what's the price? Let me know. Just answer me that. Riddle me that, 2109. I don't need any special equipment. You can contact me through all kinds of media. I'm fairly easy to contact. Contact me. Why I want you to contact me? Hey, I can tell you exactly why, because that's what Gary said. First, you should determine why you want to contact them. Because I think science will explain the paranormal. I would like to think that I could be a part of this story or assist in this story or project or experiment, however you want to word it. I think it would be interesting to continue this experiment. That's why I want you to contact me. I don't necessarily need you to give me the Lotto numbers. I won't say no. You don't necessarily have to tell me too much about the future. I won't say no. But, yeah, 2109, if you're listening, I'm right here. I've got a fairly good-sized audience, Top 100 podcast. If you want to get some words out or some codes out or messages out, let's do this. I'm all about it. All right, what did you guys think? Did you guys know about this story? Why isn't this a bigger story? Who or what is 2109? I got so many questions. What the hell? It's interesting. I dig it. I hope you guys like this one quite a bit. I like doing this one. If you have more information about this story that I didn't say, please let me know. I'd like to do follow-ups on this episode. I think this would be a good episode to do some follow-ups about. There's enough in here. And I'm going to read the book finish reading the book in a more Da Vinci Code kind of way. But once again, I'm your host, Curt Samick, and this has been another edition of Paranormal Almanac. Hush to Ashla, Zerl Virus Master Feed Up in here. Semastro, no, we know Steam Amic.